Welcome in, everybody. I'm Mark Drumheller here at Fantasy Life with the college football GOAT and our head analyst, Thor Nystrom, bringing you Mock Draft 3.0. Thor, lesser men would leave you to believe that the college football season ended last night, but for here, us at Fantasy Life, there is no end. We just shift our attention to April. So how are we feeling after the national championship?
Oh, great. Yeah, it was a good game. Not a great non-cover for Notre Dame, but it was a fun game to watch, and now the college football season's over. So if we weren't before, we are officially in NFL draft season. Excited to talk about this mock draft with you this morning, Mark.
Absolutely. Exciting way to conclude the first year of the playoffs. So I thought it was a lot of fun, but plenty of work to do as we look ahead into April and find out where these players that we saw shine on the biggest stage are going to end up. So let's get right into that. We're going to start number one on the clock, Thor, is going to be the Tennessee Titans. A little bit of news this week. New GM in the fold. Where do we see the Titans going with the first pick?
They're going to go quarterback, and there's only two to choose from here. So this is a binary decision. They obviously need their quarterback in the future. Will Levis is not it. And so this one's down to Cam Ward or Shadir Sanders. Cam Ward is the favorite in Vegas right now. You'll see him one on a lot of mock drafts, but not on this one. We're going to keep Shadir Sanders in the number one slot here. As you mentioned, they just hired their decision maker, and he is about to hire other people for his scouting department and front office. I don't know how people could feel confident about, it's going to be Cam Ward over Shadir Sanders. So I'm going to stick with my read that Shadir Sanders is the better quarterback. In addition to that, the Titans are sending their one of their offensive assistants, Peyton McCollum, will be coaching Shadir Sanders as the quarterback coach of the West team at the Shrine game. So the Titans will have boots on the ground, right up close exposure to Shadir Sanders at the Shrine game. We'll see. We got a lot of process to play out, but I'm keeping Shadir Sanders here in the one slot.
Absolutely. Exciting times for the Titans. New stadium on the way. And they're in the midst of a rebuild. So I love the fact that they go Sanders here, get some hype around that team. And listen, we know Will Levis was a little bit of a project, but they do have a good history drafting, the late Steve McNair in the draft. So I love it that they go Sanders here. Let's look at the second pick where we had a little chaos, right? Quarterback off the board. Other teams that need a quarterback show a little bit of sense of urgency. What do you see happening with the second pick in the draft?
Yeah, my national title party last night, we did an exercise where we were counting the teams in the NFL that need a quarterback, and it's depending on, what Aaron Rodgers does, what Stafford does, but you're around like 7, ish or so. You have 2 quarterbacks coming into the NFL that can start immediately only. Right. And then on the free agency, you have Sam Darnold. Maybe you have Kirk Cousins later on. The whole point being you do not have enough available immediate starting quarterbacks to fill all the holes. That means that Cleveland's in business here at number 2. Did they want to take the second quarterback of this draft for themselves? Or do you want to get the haul that you could get for trading down? Cleveland, who has they're bringing Kevin Stefanski back as head coach. Kevin Stefanski previously worked with Kirk Cousins in Minnesota. The Browns have their cap problems. Kirk Cousins, the post June 1 cut, presumably is gonna sign the Russell Wilson minimum contract. I'm under the situational assumption that those two are gonna meet up, which is why I have Cleveland trading out of this slot with the Giants, who are desperate to get their quarterback of the future. Arguably should have done this last year. Arguably should have done it. They have had all sorts of sliding doors with the quarterbacks. This time you could actually solve it. The Giants themselves, who brought back a GM and a coach who are under fire, they need to do something here. They need to do something in this offseason to plug this just gaping hole at quarterback. Cam Ward, of course, would do that. Some people consider him the best quarterback in the class. Certainly his improvement last season when he went to Miami made the very smart decision to pull out of the draft 1 year ago today. He had declared he decides to pull out, transfer to Miami, and he went from being what would have been a day 3 pick to now a top 3 pick, almost assuredly. So the Giants get their quarterback of the future, and they trade out of this slot, going one spot down. In exchange, they acquire from New York the 34th pick and the 104th pick. That would give Cleveland 3 picks in the top 34, and it would give them 7 in the top 104. To help try to get back into contention this coming season.
Absolutely love it. If you're a Browns fan, you want to leverage that pick for all the value. And guys, make sure you check out Thor's entire mock draft 3.0. It's over at the Fantasy Life website right now live at fantasylife.com. You can get all the detailed analysis on every pick all the way through the first round. So great stuff here from Thor as we keep it rolling. We're going to now move to the third pick. And what does Cleveland do now that they've dropped down and acquired all this draft capital?
They're taking the best player in the draft in Travis Hunter. And for the Browns here, you're getting 2 starters in one. He's going to become your CB1. And then he will also be your wide receiver 1 whenever he is on the field on offense. He is going to play more offense as a rookie and going forward than people recall in their minds, the guys from the past that did the cornerback wide receiver thing, the Deion Sanderses, the Champ Baileys, et cetera. Travis Hunter, it's going to be 40 to 50%, I believe, as a rookie on offense. Those 40 or 50% of the snaps, Jerry Jeudy slides into the secondary role that he is more suited for anyway. This is the best player in the draft. You have bigger needs if you're Cleveland. It doesn't matter. You have a shot here to draft football Shohei Ohtani. You have to draft Travis Hunter with the third pick here. That's what Cleveland does.
Hunter, an incredible season, the most electrifying player in college football. The Browns to get him at 3 would surely be happy and put a lot of people in the seats to watch that play out. So now we go on to the fourth pick. The New England Patriots hire Mike Vrabel, Patriot Way 2.0, incoming. What does Vrabel do, and how does he start to build this new Patriots team?
Yeah, they got a long way to go with the roster building before it's Patriots 2.0. We got a lot of holes around this roster, and unfortunately for Mike Vrabel, Jared Mayo pulled a Lovie Smith in that finale and won them out of the first pick and dropping down to 4. So instead of getting a guy like Travis Hunter, you at number 4, I believe that this is going to be the 2 quarterbacks in Travis Hunter in whatever order that ends up being. And maybe you have a team like the Raiders or the Jets trade up into the top 3 to get one of those quarterbacks. But I believe that those 3 guys will be the top 3 in some order. That would, for New England, then this would be an interesting decision where do you want to prioritize improving your offensive line, which has been an absolute travesty, an abomination the last 2 years. They have finished last in the league in pass protection rate each of the last 2 seasons. Do you want to prioritize that? And you're Mike Vrabel, you like trench play, or you have the huge hole at receiver. Tetairoa McMillan would look great there. You have a hole at the cornerback opposite Christian Gonzalez, Will Johnson. If you picked him, you'd have the best young corner duo in the league. But with this being Vrabel's first pick, I'm gonna evoke in this one Jim Harbaugh's first pick with the Chargers the year before. Everyone was mocking, like leading up to the draft, you were still able to get Joe Alt as an underdog for that pick because everyone started trying to slot Malik Neighbors to the Chargers. And it's like, this is a head coach with his first pick on a team that needs offensive line help that fetishizes offensive line play. We have seen his body of work over the last 20 years. Why would he take a wide receiver over an offensive lineman? That's what where I'm at with Mike Vrabel. I think he is going to look at the state of the trench play of the Patriots, and it is going to be a mandate that's what they improved this offseason. I'm going with Kelvin Banks Jr. from Texas. There's a debate between Kelvin Banks and Will Campbell. It's not as much of a debate for me. I see Will Campbell going higher in most of the mock drafts. I disagree with that. I think Kelvin Banks is your top offensive lineman in this class. You look at last year, Banks had an 86.0 overall PFF grade. Will Campbell, 74.3. One metric that I love to look at for collegiate tackles is true pass set grade, because you remove the screens, you remove the RPOs, you remove the play actions, and you put them all on an even basis when you're judging that metric. It's just the true pass sets without any cotton candy gimmickry. Banks had a 79.9 true pass set pass pro grade last year. Will Campbell, 71.7. I could go through a bunch of different metrics here, but Banks was much better last year. I think he is the better prospect. Kelvin Banks slots in immediately as the left tackle for the New England Patriots on day one.
Yeah, transitioning from the college game to the pro game, always tough for offensive linemen, Thor, but that metric can go a long way in helping, GMs narrow it down. So let's move along. Fifth pick, Jacksonville Jaguars. Never really know what you're going to get with this team. Drafting in the top 5. Where do you think they go, Thor?
Well, I'm pretty sure they'll go defense. Trevor Lawrence's health itself is the thing that's going to get the offense back on track. The defense, though, was horrible. They allowed the most yards per play in the NFL last season. You have issues at both. Well, you have multiple issues, but the biggest ones are interior defensive line and cornerback. I think this decision is going to come down to Michigan teammates. I think this is going to be Mason Graham against Will Johnson. I have flip-flopped quite a bit on this one. Graham was in my previous mock draft. This time I went with Will Johnson. I did some more digging on Jacksonville's situation. I was told that they really like both Mason Graham and Jordan Jefferson, the LSU interior defensive lineman that they took the last class, and are comfortable with Davin Hamilton as their nose guard. They also must keep Eric Armstead for the next couple, or at least next year, because of the contract they signed. You're not able to get rid of him. He can shift inside. So I decided instead to shift away from the inside and go to the cornerback here and take Will Johnson, a shutdown cornerback from Michigan, the best boundary cornerback in this class. The best pure one, I should probably say. And so that they solved their issue there at cornerback by taking Will Johnson.
I love it. Number 6, drafting number 6 is the Las Vegas Raiders. Going to be a huge offseason for the Raiders. Ton of cap space. Max Crosby already on the recruiting trail, trying to get some players in the Las Vegas. Thor, what do you see them doing right here?
We're going with Arizona wide receiver Tetairoa McMillan here. A guy, obviously Las Vegas needs a wide receiver one. They traded Devonta Adams this past season. You have a gaping hole there. You need someone to complement Brock Bowers. The Raiders, of course, need a quarterback as well. In the last mock draft, I gave them Jalen Milroe in this slot, but we still don't know who their head coach is going to be. And Jalen Milroe is only going to be a fit for certain coaches, certain schemes. Therefore, just because of the uncertainty with that, I deferred on this pick to helping their passing game in the other way with Tetairoa McMillan. 6'5", 210 pounds, long arms. He has the catch radius of an Indian god, and he catches everything. So, I mean, this is your prototypical alpha boundary wide receiver one in the NFL, and that's what Las Vegas used the 6th pick on.
Raiders definitely need some weapons. They got a lot of holes to fill, so that'd be an exciting draft pick for them for sure. Now let's move on to number 7 overall. It's going to be the New York Jets. Jets, an interesting team because they had a lot of talent, a lot of expectations last year. It didn't come through, but they have a chance to, bring in a real strong player right here at number 7.
Lots of stuff up in the air with the Jets. Lots of stuff up in the air right now, and don't expect Aaron Rodgers to be back next year. But they're not in a position here, to get one of the guys who could step in immediately and start. So instead, I had them going with the more or less BPA here with Mason Graham. Mason Graham falls down a little bit because Jacksonville, I had them going with Will Johnson here. But you have a interior defensive line hole, especially if Javon Kinlaw leaves. Javon Kinlaw signed a 1-year deal last offseason. Mason Graham would seamlessly slide into that vacancy if indeed Javon Kinlaw leaves in free agency. So we send the best 3 technique in this draft over to the New York Jets.
New York Jets to tighten up the defense. So number 8 is going to be, it looks like the number 8, the Carolina Panthers, who we saw really make some huge strides in the second half of the season under Dave Canales. What do you see them doing right here at number 8, Thor?
I went with Abdul Carter, the edge rusher for Penn State. Abdul Carter is a terror. He led the FBS in tackles for loss this season. Was a crazy cool story. They moved him from off-ball linebacker to the edge, and he just became an absolute terror. He's a two-way player. He's really good against the run. The funnest thing about his tape is when he chases guys down behind the line of scrimmage from the other side of the field, disengaging from the right tackle, running down the line. He's just a relentless pursuer, and he has all the athleticism he needs. So if he fell down here to number 8, someone's going to fall down here, whether it's Tet McMillan, whether it's Abdul Carter, someone that's really going to help out the Panthers, and that would be Abdul Carter here.
Absolutely. Moving right along, number 9 overall, the New Orleans Saints, as we start to round out the top 10. Where did the Saints go? Do they look at the most important position on the field, Thor?
We gave him Jalen Milroe here. Yeah, the Saints, you're capped out. The worst cap situation in the NFL by far. Negative $52.3 million in the hole in salary cap space. That is the worst in the NFL by more than $20 million. and you have holes all over your roster. So, I mean, you are not going to be contending next year. The thing you're going to be contending for is the first pick the following season. And you're probably not going to be contending the next couple years. If it's me, you're looking around, you're like, what can we do to become, competent next year? Well, there's really nothing you can do. Why not shoot the moon on Jalen Milroe's ceiling? New Orleans is a team that needs a quarterback of the future. With Jalen Milroe, you bring him in, see if you can get him to the next level as a passer. He evokes for me Anthony Richardson, just a little bit smaller, 2 inches shorter, 20 pounds lighter, but analogous as a runner. And you have the bazooka arm downfield. So I just think, if you're in New Orleans' situation, you got a shot here to get a franchise quarterback. You're going to have to assume some risk. But you roll the dice and grab Jalen Milroe.
I love it. I think it gets the Saints a playmaker, a quarterback. They do have some offensive weapons they can put around them. So I think that one makes a ton of sense, Thor. Now at number 10 on the clock, the Chicago Bears, a team that made a ton of news. They got their guy in Ben Johnson. They're taking care of Caleb Williams. They have a lot of weapons on that side of the ball. Do you think they focus on defense here, Thor?
I gave him Michael Williams, an edge rusher from Georgia. Just another off the factory line edge rusher from Georgia. He was actually better in college than Trayvon Walker was. Trayvon Walker, the number 1 overall pick for Jacksonville a couple years ago. I did consider, I have to say, after the Ben Johnson news, I did briefly consider the scandalous take of Ashton Genty here. DeAndre Swift is back for 1 more year. But as you recall, Ben Johnson's former employer shocked the world by taking Jahmyr Gibbs, number 12, a couple years ago, and everyone made fun of them, and it worked out. Chicago, you have the quarterback set, you have the wide receiver set. You could go offensive line, you could go Ashton Genty, or you could go defense. They have the holes on the defense. Well, I did go edge here for Chicago, but in future mock drafts, when this thing settles a little bit more, I might be going with the scandalous tag.
Yeah, and Thor, I might have my eye on the Chicago Bears team totals early in the season if they do bring Gentry into the fold, because that offense will be putting up points with Ben Johnson for sure. So moving right along, the San Francisco 49ers, very disappointing season last year, a ton of injuries, but now they get a chance to infuse some young talent here at number 11.
Yeah, give him a young offensive lineman in Will Campbell, that guy that some people think is the top offensive lineman in the class. I explained earlier why I don't, but if at number 11, this is a solid value. With San Francisco, you have a big short-term need on the interior offensive line at guard, and then you have a big long-term need at tackle because Trent Williams, when will he retire? Will it be this offseason? Will it be next? It's coming. And then Colton McAvets, kid from West Virginia, he has 1 more year left on his contract, and then he is a free agent. My idea with this, with Will Campbell, would be you draft him here. He is your year 1 starter at offensive guard, assuming that indeed Aaron Banks leaves in free agency. And then after that, you like his work, you feel comfortable with him at tackle, you kick him out to replace either Williams or McAvets.
That makes a ton of sense for the 49ers. Hopefully they can get back to their winning ways after a rough season. At number 12 overall, we get the Dallas Cowboys. And they always, can surprise us on draft day. We never really know what Jerry Jones is thinking or how much influence he's going to have in that draft room. How do you see it playing out, Thor?
No surprise here. I'm going to give the cliche of the mock draft season and give them Ashton Genty. Again, I think that they could get hopped in line by a team like the Bears. Genty is a special enough prospect. The teams are going to be sniffing around and considering it, even though the position value does not jive. But this has become a cliche pick because it makes so much sense. Dallas desperately needs the running back. The same people are going to be making this decision. Took Ezekiel Elliott number 4, however many years ago that was. At number 12, you take a prospect who is analogous or even potentially, I believe, a little bit better than Bijan Robinson, who went 8 a couple years ago. We're giving him Ashton Genty here.
It'll be huge for the Dallas Cowboys offense. And guys, everyone following along, make sure you go over to fantasylife.com. You can check out Thor's mock draft 3.0. Everything's right there on the website. Great detailed analysis, on every single pick. And we'll continue to mold this thing until we get to April. It's going to be an exciting time leading into the NFL draft. So let's keep it moving along. The Miami Dolphins drafting at number 13, Thor.
Yeah, you needs at cornerback and safety here. Acute need in the secondary. And at safety in particular, Javon Holland and Jordan Poyer are both impending free agents. And I don't know that Miami is going to have the flexibility to keep both. Every fan base is trying to steal Holland from them right now. So we're going to give them a safety where you can literally play him anywhere. So you plug your safety hole, but then also you want to use him in the nickel. You can use him in the boundary a little bit if you want to move him into the box. Malachi Starks from Georgia. He is your do-everything defensive chess piece player of this class. Played everywhere. 400 snaps as a deep safety last year, 271 as a nickel defender, 215 as an in-the-box off-ball linebacker, 10 on the edge, 10 as a boundary cornerback. You just play him anywhere. He's a queen on the chessboard who knocks out one of the matchups for the offense on every play. You just put him there, will knock out your matchup. Malachi Starks, good fit for Miami.
The Miami Dolphins get their guy number 14 overall. It's the team, the Indianapolis Colts. Colts up and down season. I think it was a very winnable AFC South this year. A little down year for the South, but Anthony Richardson still battling injuries. Things didn't go exactly his way in his sophomore campaign, and Shane Steichen might be under the hot seat. What do you see in store for the Colts here at this pick?
Tyler Warren, tight end, Penn State, 6'6", 260-pound, do-everything matchup nightmare of a tight end. A guy that had specialized offensive usage like Brock Bowers did the year before at Georgia. Except Brock Bowers is 3 inches and 30 pounds lighter. Or 20 pounds lighter. Tyler Warren, a special athlete. And the things I'm talking about, it's shifting him into the backfield, using him as a runner, doing end-around stuff, just manufactured touch stuff. They would do trick plays with him. He scored a touchdown this season on a play where he began as the center. The shotgun snap, and everyone on the offensive line was lined up to the right of him. He was an eligible receiver, and he just ran downfield, and then he mossed someone in the end zone. Tyler Warren would be an enormous help for Anthony Richardson. He is what the doctor ordered there, so we're sending him to Indianapolis.
Next up on the clock at number 15, Thor, is a team that in the Atlanta Falcons that shook up the draft last year with Michael Penix Jr., right? And a lot of people made fun of them, but then when Kirk Cousins didn't seem fully recovered, this season and really struggled in his debut with the Falcons, they looked a little smarter for taking Penix there. What do you see they do here?
Got to fix the pass rush. I've been saying this for 6 years now, and I'll be saying it again if Terry Fontenot goes another direction with a non-premium position like he was doing. I mean, Penix was QB2 at the time when he'd signed that albatross of a contract for Kirk Cousins that now is going to ruin their books the next 2 years. And then before, Bijan Robinson, you had Kyle Pitts. He loves to take non-premium position guys. They must fix this pass rush. Terry, are you listening to me? If you don't do it this year, if you haven't been fired in advance, you will be fired after this one. Fix your friggin' pass rush. They finished second to last in the NFL in sacks last year. James Pierce is what this team needs from Tennessee. James Pierce, to me, he's the exact same thing as Brian Burns. The same thing that people nitpick Brian Burns for, they are now nitpicking James Pierce for. But what you get out of both those guys, it's the lithe, sleek Ferrari athletes off the edge coming after the quarterback. Will James Pierce ever set a hard edge for you against the run? No, probably not. Luckily for the Falcons, though, he is the medicine that is going to help fix the crippling issue of your team right now, which is that you can't generate any heat whatsoever on the quarterback. James Pierce gets after the quarterbacks. That's why this is a marriage made in heaven.
At number 16 overall, the Arizona Cardinals. Jonathan Gannon continuing to build something in Arizona. They're on the clock next, Thor. What do you see in store for the Cardinals?
Luther Burden, wide receiver from Missouri, think he'd be a really good fit, stylistic fit for that team as their new slot receiver, working inside of Marvin Harrison, who is always going to afford his slot receiver all kinds of intermediate spacing. Remember at Ohio State, Jackson Smith and Jigba, you could never double team that guy. You could never shade coverage there because you always had to have guys out on the boundary and the work that was done there. You get a stud slot guy here at Arizona. I think that could also help Marvin Harrison himself, right? I mean, at that point, defenses can't shade coverage there. If you got a real problem in the slot, Of course, you have McBride there as well to help out with the spacing thing. And then these guys would help out taking defensive attention away from him. I just think that this is a really good fit, a match when you look at him against the other pass catchers. They have Michael Wilson, the big possession guy, on the other side. Luther Burden goes to Arizona.
Love it for the Cardinals. I think that would be an excellent pick for them at that spot. Moving right along, the team that nobody wanted to play in the playoffs, Joe Burrow and the Cincinnati Bengals on the clock next. Thor, what do we got for Cincy?
What we got is some hard financial decisions that they're going to have to make this offseason. And is that going to be, is Higgins going to be out the door, or are you going to be able to get Higgins back and then some other guys get squeezed? Not everyone is making it out of this thing. So someone's going to get pushed out that they really like. There has been beginning of trade rumors and smoke around Trey Hendrickson, who's coming off a big year, has 1 year left on his deal, could open up some salary cap space and recoup a draft pick if you ended up trading him. Trey Hendrickson, a guy in this draft that he reminds me a lot of is Nick Scorton from the edge from Texas A&M, a big bully of an edge rusher, just the same as Hendrickson, a speed to power type guy. If you do trade Hendrickson, or even if they didn't, Hendrickson and Sam Hubbard has 1 year left on his deal. So both of them would have 1 year left on the deal. They have to do something with the edge position. They have very little depth behind those guys as well. So either way this goes, you expect Cincinnati to be shopping for edge early. And Nick Scorton, especially in a scenario where Trey Hendrickson is dealt, he's perfect because he's just a younger version.
Yeah, I think all year we've been screaming, get Joe Burrow some defense. So, targeting the defensive side of the ball definitely makes sense for the Bengals there. We're going to keep moving along here at number 18 overall, Mike McDonald in his second year, with the Seahawks. What do you think's in store for Seahawks fans?
Offensive line help here, and we went with Josh Connerly, offensive tackle from Oregon. Former 5-star recruit, a tremendous athlete. Josh Connerly began his high school career as a running back. And then by the end of it, he had gotten big enough where he was an 5-star offensive lineman because he retained his athleticism. He is your dancing bear out there on the boundary there of the offensive line out there on the edge. Very, very good feet. The play strength is the question for him. It just is what it is. But Seattle, they love tackles like this. Abraham Lucas and Charles Cross. If Connerly got into the building there, those three guys would be the Spider-Man gif, all of them pointing at each other. We'll go with Josh Connerly here.
All right, so now we get into the playoff teams, Thor. The teams that made it to the playoffs last season, starting with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, a team that surprisingly got upset by the Washington Commanders, fell victim to Jaden Daniels' incredible run through the playoffs. Tampa Bay's on the clock. Who do they got, Thor?
Give him Benjamin Morrison, the cornerback from Notre Dame, who might be available at a bit of a sticker price discount here because of the season-ending hip injury that he suffered earlier in the fall. He for sure would have been top 15 had that not happened, and maybe even been pushing for the top 10. He is the son of a former NFL player, so you have the bloodlines. The NFL loves that. And then Morrison had 6 interceptions as a true freshman in 2022. Last year, he was a semifinalist for the Thorpe Award. So those were his 2 fully healthy years in college football. He's got great size. Tampa's going to take that discount and grab Morrison here.
Okay, number 20 overall, the Denver Broncos, Sean Payton drafted Bo Nix last year. A lot of people were unsure about that pick. Looks like it worked out. Does he continue to build the offense and put weapons around Bo Nix?
Went with Colson Loveland here, the tight end from Michigan, who would be the best, the most skilled pass catcher left on the board here. Colson Loveland he's not the physical specimen that Tyler Warren is. He's probably not the athlete as well. He's not a crushing blocker in line, but he is essentially, for Broncos fans, what you can think of him as. He's the Greg Dulcich that you were promised. He is actually the guy that people were forwarding. Oh, Greg Dulcich could turn into this. That's what Colson Loveland is. He's just super duper skilled as that pass catcher. The routes are very good. He gets to where he needs to go on time every time. He's one of those guys that quarterbacks just love working with. And then he's got really good hands. He's also a handful after the catch as well. He's a really good runner. So Colson Loveland would be a really good fit here with Bo Nix and that offense they're trying to build.
Makes a ton of sense. I like it. A 21 to Pittsburgh Steelers. Tremendous year from the Steelers and a Mike Tomlin. Russell Wilson looks like he was a fit there. They got a lot of question marks. Are they going to keep Russell? What's going to happen there? Draft day comes at pick number 21. Who are they grabbing, Thor?
Yeah, no quarterbacks here. So you got to go a different position. And where I ended up going is East Carolina cornerback Siobhan Ravel, who himself is coming off a season-ending injury. In his case, it was a torn ACL from a practice in September. But the what I have seen, what I am hearing is that Ravel will be back for August for training camp. And if that is the prognosis that teams get at the combine during the medical checks on Ravel, that our medical team feels pretty confident we're going to get him for August, you wouldn't expect him to drop too far beneath where he was going to go anyway. This is a 6'3", long levered boundary cornerback who was a track star. He's got speed to burn. You put him across from Joey Porter Jr., you have now solved, a couple of years ago, the Steelers had all kinds of cornerback issues. Then they got Joey Porter, and it's like, all right, one of those two things we have solved for the next decade. With this pick, you solve the spot across from him for the next decade. You don't have to worry about cornerback again for a long time.
Excellent value pick there for the Steelers if they're able to get that type of player, because offenses today, they just attack the weakest link in the secondary. So you got to be shored up on both sides. I love that one, Thor. We're going to keep this moving along now. Jim Harbaugh, second year, right, with the Los Angeles Chargers. How does he continue to build this team?
By taking one of his former Michigan Wolverines, a kid that he plucked out of high school to join him at Michigan, in Kenneth Grant, the war daddy interior defensive lineman who played next to Mason Graham in college, was why Michigan's defense was such a problem these last couple of years. You had 2 first-round absolute studs just busting heads in there and then ransacking backfields. Kenneth Grant came out of high school, get this, running a sub-5, running in the 4s in the 40-yard dash at 350 pounds. Wow. Jim Harbaugh has always loved him. You look up any of the quotes Jim Harbaugh has ever said about Kenneth Grant. He absolutely loves Kenneth Grant as a player. And it just so happens that the Chargers' biggest offseason need is a war daddy interior defensive lineman. So I'm going to put 2 and 2 together here and keep Kenneth Grant going to the Chargers.
I can definitely see that. And guys, make sure you're going over to the Fantasy Life website and checking out Thor's entire mock draft 3.0, every pick in detail on the website. So that way you can just follow along and you can get the analysis afterwards. You can circle back, put together your own mock draft along with Thor and get ready for version 4.0 as we keep this thing rolling all the way until April. It's going to be a lot of fun, so make sure you stick with us. Moving on from the Chargers, now we have the Green Bay Packers. At number 23, they have Jordan Love. They have the young receivers. But how do they round out that offense, Thor?
I gave him Josh Simmons, the offensive tackle for Ohio State. You have on the offensive line for Green Bay, Josh Myers, their center, and then Andre Dillard. They're both impending free agents. Green Bay typically drafts trenches very high in the draft year after year after year. Think that could be the case again this season. And with Josh Simmons, it's another guy that you're getting on a sticker price discount because of a season-ending injury. In his case, suffered in the regular season game against Oregon, not the rematch, the one in October. That knocked Simmons out for the year. Ohio State went on to win the national title anyway. Credit to them. But Josh Simmons, were it not for that injury, he might have been offensive tackle 1 in this class. That's what some people believe. But because of the injury, fall down here into the 20s, and Green Bay takes a little bit of a discount on him. In 601 pass blocking reps going back to last season, Simmons allowed only 1 sack on the blind side for Ohio State.
That's good. They could definitely use him. At number 24, the Minnesota Vikings, Thor. The Vikings came out of nowhere, it seemed like. Looks like they have everything in place with the head coach, Kevin O'Connell, J.J. McCarthy, coming back after injury next year. The offense looks set, but what do you think the Vikings do here at this pick?
I gave them Jahdae Barron, the cornerback from Texas, who was a shutdown boundary corner this year. They've shifted him to the boundary from nickel. But this season, the way that they used him, they shifted him all over the place. It was really interesting usage for a CB1 boundary cornerback in college football. He would play in the slot. They would move. He would be a box safety. They'd put him in center field. All kinds of different stuff they were doing with Jahdae Barron. I think that would be appealing to Brian Flores, the mad scientist, Minnesota defensive coordinator who moves people all over the place. Barron picked off 5 balls this season. He on 65 targets, only allowed 272 yards, no touchdowns. Minnesota desperately needs a cornerback.
And they're going to get a good one right there if they select him with that pick. So number 25, the Houston Texans. Texans were a team, Thor, that had a lot of aspirations coming into the season, went out, made some big moves. Stephon Diggs really went for it, pushed all in, and then ran into a lot of injuries. They were still able to have a good season, win a playoff game against the Chargers, but I'm sure they have their eyes on a much bigger prize. How do you think they keep building here?
You need help on the interior defensive line there. So I went Walter Nolan, the interior defensive lineman from Ole Miss, former 5-star recruit, signed with Texas A&M and then transferred to Ole Miss for his last season. Coming off a tremendous 3-year career in the SEC, played immediately at Texas A&M. And then we saw him take his game to another level this year as well. Very quick player, and I think of him as country strong. Walter Nolan compares himself to Aaron Donald. I think that might be going a little far, kid. But you're along the same. It's the same like line of continuum of the dude who just combines quickness with that country strength. Not quite Aaron Donald, but maybe Aaron Donald mini meat kind of.
There you go. Well, speaking of Aaron Donald, his former team, the Los Angeles Rams, up next to select at pick number 26. The Rams just lost the playoff game to the Philadelphia Eagles. Had a good season, but they're definitely in win now mode with Matthew Stafford at the helm. What do you see in store for the Rams at this pick?
Going with Minnesota offensive tackle Ariante Irsure, a guy who is probably he's either going to slot late first or early second. It's going to depend on what happens with the offensive tackles in front of him. This is a round where, you see Simmons going off the board right around where it's going to be Irsure time, where he's going to be, on the clock himself. And with the Rams in this scenario, the Rams, you have Alaric Jackson, their left tackle. He's a free agent. Rob Havenstein, the right tackle, has 1 non-guaranteed year left on his deal. So if they wanted to, they could just cut him. You have the big offensive tackle need there, and the Rams have not taken an offensive lineman in round 1 for more than a decade. So maybe this one would make some sense. Irsure, he was the left tackle for the Gophers the last 3 years, only allowed 1 sack over 419 pass pro reps this fall.
Up next on the clock, Thor, the Baltimore Ravens. Tough loss. Might be too soon for Ravens fans to talk about next year already, but they have to turn the page and look forward to the draft here. Do they go out and get Lamar Jackson another weapon, or do they continue to build that defense?
Yeah, I mean, you could think about both here. I ended up giving the Ravens Emeka Egbuka, and I was, I haven't seen this fit in a lot of ones, and I hadn't done this before, but the more I thought about this, the more that I started to like it. Emeka Egbuka, just like Jackson Smith and Jig, but you're coming out of that Ohio State system where you had dominant numbers in the slot, and you think about Baltimore's offense, which is a 12 personnel base, which is why I don't think a lot of people are sniffing around this one and why I hadn't thought about it before, because the tight end invariably is taking that slot receiver off the field. However, they do run the 3 wide receiver sets. And my thought with this pick here is, you essentially have Egbuka is your slot receiver on the 3 receiver sets, and then could be splitting snaps essentially or cutting into Bateman's snaps on the boundary when you're in 12 personnel. It would give them another mix and match option. And Egbuka, it's the kind of efficiency receiver I think that offense could use. With Zay Flowers, it's the little bolt of electricity. With Egbuka, it's your intermediate guy. Again, think of Jackson Smith and Jig. It's your intermediate guy. He's very good at denoting the coverages. He's with zone. He immediately knows, like, it's like a supercomputer where every guy, all the defenders are going to be dropping back to. He can immediately get to that open spot, make himself available to the quarterback. It's a guy who's going to improve the efficiency of your offense. So it's someone that Lamar Jackson would appreciate.
I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, I think the Ravens, the way their offense is built, they put linebackers in conflict all the time. So getting a good slot receiver there would do wonders for that offense and hopefully push them over the hump. We know Lamar Jackson had an incredible season, so he'll continue to improve on that. Moving right along to pick number 28, Dan Campbell's Detroit Lions. Very disappointing end as they were upset in the playoffs by the Washington Commanders. Their season didn't go as planned, but they have a chance to reboot here.
Yeah, I gave the Lions Landon Jackson, the edge rusher from Arkansas, because Marcus Davenport's going to leave in free agency. Aiden Hutchinson coming off the season-ending injury, and then you have a decision to make on Zadarius Smith. He has this convoluted contract. The cap hits, and we'll have to see what they do with Zadarius Smith and his weird contract. But either way, Detroit needs edge help. Landon Jackson would certainly provide that. He's a towering, long power edge at 6'7", 280 pounds. I think he'd be a good stylistic fit across from Aiden Hutchinson, and so that's what we're going to give the Lions.
I like it. And listen, guys, make sure you head over to the website, fantasylife.com. You can get all the analysis on each and every pick here in Thor's mock draft 3.0. So head right over to the website right now, and you can check that out. We're going to continue to move on. And Thor, now we get into the playoff teams, the teams that are still playing football right now. But we're going to make some assumptions, and we're going to go. And this is an assumption that, as an Eagles fan, I will agree with. The Washington Commanders picking here at number 29. What do you see in store for the Commanders, whose franchise really took a huge turn in the right direction this year? It's great to see those fans, getting winning football right now.
I gave him interior defensive line Derek Harmon from Oregon. Derek Harmon took his game up to a new level this year after transferring to Oregon, led the FBS in hurries for interior defensive linemen with 39. Washington needs help there. It's a good fit.
Moving right along with the 30th pick, the Buffalo Bills, Thor. Where do you see the Bills going?
The Bills need help at both edge rusher and linebacker. We're going to give them a prospect that can do a little bit of both those things with Jalen Walker from Georgia.
Sounds great. With pick number 31, we have the Philadelphia Eagles on the clock. Of course, the order will be determined by the playoffs. Thor, what do you see? What do you see the Eagles looking to do in the draft?
Josh Sweat's an impending free agent. Brandon Graham is retiring here. So edge is the obvious top need for the Eagles. And there's a few different ones that you can go with here, including two different ones from the Ohio State University, the defending national championship, the defending national champions. And that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to give them JT I'm going to have to get better pronounce his name. JTT from Ohio State, the edge rusher. But he was top 10 in the FBS in both sacks and hits this year, and also made enormous improvements against the run. So we're going to give Philadelphia JTT.
GM Howie Roseman always prioritizing the trenches. So with him getting a big name from a big school there makes a ton of sense. So let's cap things off. We'll finish off the first round with the Kansas City Chiefs here at pick number 32.
Who take Arizona offensive lineman Jonah Savanea. It's another one I'm going to have to get better with, but a very good offensive lineman from Arizona and a guy who could presumably play either guard or tackle at the next level. The Chiefs, this is a similar thing to that we were talking about earlier with the 49ers, where you could take a guy that played collegiate tackle, you could start him on the interior. You might have some length concerns, but you could see, and then if he could handle tackle in the future, depending on the way that he plays. But with the Chiefs, you have Trey Smith as the impending free agent. Is he going to be too cost prohibitive to bring back? And if you do bring him back, you're going to have to cut Joe Thuney, right? Like you're not going to have the cash for everyone. So you're going to have a hole there either way. And then a tackle, the Kingsley kid they took last year, Wanya Morris. I mean, they have tackle issues there. And now they've moved Thuney to tackle. You have all kinds of stuff there. You need offensive line help. You need a little bit of maybe a short term on, the interior, maybe long term on tackle. So I think this kid from Arizona is a good fit. Started at right guard in 2022, right tackle last year. And then he was between left and right this year. So position versatility as well.
Perfect fit for the Chiefs there. Big Red always prioritizes the offensive line. Learned his lesson in that Super Bowl against the Buccaneers, and I don't think he's going to let that happen again a few years back. So that is going to wrap up our first round for, mock draft 3.0. Thor, excellent job here. We appreciate everybody, joining us and hanging in with us. And remember, you can go over to the website, fantasylife.com, Check out Thor's Mock Draft 3.0 in its entirety, every pick, detailed analysis all the way through, from the Tennessee Titans all the way down to the Kansas City Chiefs at pick number 32. So we appreciate you guys hanging around with us. I'm Mark Drumheller. For Thor Nystrom, for Matt LaMarca behind the scenes producing the show, we appreciate all you guys, and we will see you next time at Fantasy Life.